Students online, are you able to hear me? Can someone confirm if you are able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll get started. So in the previous class, what was the last topic we stopped at? We started Coulomb's law, right? So last class we were discussing about charges. Did anyone miss last class? Is anyone coming today only for the first class? Okay. So last class we discussed about charges. We saw what charges represent and what are the units associated with it. What is the nature of charge? Then we saw the basic properties of charge, right? So in from today we will be concentrating on how charges are going to interact. So when I use the word interact, what am I trying to say? I'm speaking about the force of attraction or repulsion. Like unlike your Newton's law of gravitation, so going forward, whenever I use the word interaction, right? So it means that the charges are interacting with themselves in terms of force. The force can either be attractive, attractive is nothing but pulling force, or repulsive, which is a pushing force. So the charges will try to push each other away from each other, right? So the law which gives the statement for the force acting between two, I mentioned one important word. What is it? What should be the nature of charge for you to define Coulomb's law? It's there. The force of attraction or repulsion that is existing between two point charges. So please make a clear note of that point. Coulomb's law is applicable only when you have point charges in the system. So when two point charges are there, the other name for point charge is particle charge also. When two point charges are separated by a particular distance, then what can we say? The force of attraction or repulsion between the charges is directly proportional to the product of, we use one word here, product of the magnitude of either of the charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance of separation between them. Okay, it follows the inverse square law. Why it is only proportional to 1 by r square? There is a reason for it. I'm not getting into all those details. And the reason for that, I'll tell you the word that is associated. It has something to do with a term called as intensity. I'm not getting into these details because we could have had a question. See, one logic is clear. Let's think in terms of a magnet. Okay, if two magnets are kept close by and if two magnets are kept away from each other, the same two magnets are kept away from each other, in which case is the force going to be more logically? So I keep two magnets close to each other, I keep two magnets away from each other, the same magnets, the same system. So obviously when you place them close, because the effect is going to be more. So from that can I conclude, I'm able to understand one point, that force is definitely inversely proportional to the distance. As you keep increasing the distance, I'm going to decrease the force. But who told us that it should be only inversely proportional to r square? Why can't it be r power 1? Why can't it be r power 3? It could have been, right? And the reason why it is happening is because there is a parameter called as intensity, which is going to decide why it is only inversely proportional to r square. As I told you, I'm not getting into these details, okay? Because we'll see the same term under another topic called as electric field intensity. At that time, I'll explain. Is that clear? So mathematically, I can be clear that F is directly proportional to, I wrote it in a way where I put a modulus around the charges, right? So when you wrote Newton's law of gravitation, did you do that? Will you write F is directly proportional to the product of magnitude of the masses? No, because mass can't be negative, whereas charges can be negative. So why we are taking only magnitude is because force is a type of quantity. Force is a scalar quantity or a vector quantity? Force is a vector quantity. It has direction associated, right? So whenever there is direction associated, for those physical quantities, we will always take modulus because vector algebra will take care of the direction. When I solve the problems, you'll understand it. Okay, why we are putting that modulus. Till here, is there any doubt? Right? So last class we stopped with this expression. F is directly proportional to product of, that is magnitude of q1 into magnitude of q2 divided by r square. When you remove the proportionality symbol, the constant that is introduced is Okay, now we are going to concentrate upon what this constant of proportionality is. So write it down. F is written as 1 divided by, can someone tell me what does the K stand for? 4 pi, it's called 4 pi epsilon naught into Q1 into Q2 divided by R square. Okay, now comes an important question. What does this epsilon naught mean? It's called permittivity of what? It's called permittivity of free space or vacuum. It's called permittivity of free space or vacuum. Okay, next. What is going to be the value for it? 1 divided by 4 by epsilon naught is given as, anybody? Have they started this chapter in your school? 9 into 10 power 9. Okay. 9 into 10 power 9 unit. Newton? You try to rearrange the equation. 1 by 4 by epsilon naught, keep it on the right hand side. Take all other parameters to left hand side. So when I give 1 by 4 by, so it will be force into this, it will be something like this, F into R square divided by Q square. So force is measured in Newton. R square is measured in meter square per Coulomb square. So 1 by 4 by epsilon naught is equal to 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter per square per Coulomb square. This value is actually derived from speed of light, which is not R. We will not be worried about what it is. You only have this value in your mind. Okay. So it is given as 1 by 4 by epsilon naught. That is 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. Anybody with the value of epsilon naught? So epsilon naught is nothing but 1 by 4 pi into what? 9 into 10 power 9 unit. Unit, not the value. 1 by 4 pi into 9 into 10 power 9 Coulomb square by Newton meter square. It is exactly the reciprocal of whatever you saw for 1 by 4 pi epsilon. Okay, when you calculate this value, how much are you going to get? You will get it as 8.85 into 10 power minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton meter square. This is also an important value for you to remember, and we'll use it mostly in the second chapter. Okay. Now I have a question. So when I asked you about epsilon naught, you people told me it is the permittivity of free space, right? Let's try to understand its significance. By using the word permittivity, are they trying to tell us that a particular medium is allowing the charges to interact or resisting the charges to interact? So what I'm trying to say is, I have one charge here, I have another charge here. If these two are positive charges and they have the provision to interact with themselves, in the sense this can exert a force on the other and the vice versa can happen. If I keep it like this, then there is an intermediate between them. In this case, what is the intermediate medium? It is the air medium, right? If I say permittivity of air medium, am I trying to say that this air medium is allowing these charges to interact or resisting the charges to interact? How did you know this? I'm talking about medium. That is the like nature of charges. Anything else? You can look at the mathematical expression and see. It is inversely proportional to force. Okay, because of the word permittivity, there are many people who have confusion thinking that the medium allows the charges to interact. No, it is a resistance offered by the medium for the charges to interact. The reason being, force and permittivity are inversely proportional to each other. Means you're trying to talk about how much resistance the medium is offering for the charges to interact among themselves. Is that clear? So have this point in your mind. So we saw Coulomb's law in a form called as scalar form. So what is the Coulomb's law in scalar form? F is equal to 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into, wait, there is a slight delay. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q1 Q2 divided by R square. Right? This is what we call it as scalar form, and you can use this whenever you are asked to calculate the magnitude of force between two point charges. Okay. But now comes an important question. So we know that force is a vector quantity. When that is the case, shall I proceed? Yeah. We know that force is a vector quantity. So when you express Coulomb's law for force only in scalar form, will that be sufficient? The answer is no, because you need a vector form also to understand how to use this formula to find the direction in which the charges are experiencing force. So the next topic that we are going to see is called as Coulomb's law in what form? Obviously, the vector form. Okay. Shall I proceed? Guys, online, any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now let's see. One minute. Yeah, listen guys. So I'll ask some basic questions from vectors. Tell me whether you know or not. Okay. So if I have to represent something as a vector, the first thing that I need is a position vector. So I'm sure you would have heard this word position vector. Can someone tell me the meaning of it? If I have to define the position of point Q1, position of any particle is defined with respect to whom? What is the most important point in a graph? It is origin. So if you are able to represent the position of any point by representing the origin as the starting point, then that kind of a vector is what we call it as position vector. So listen to this. So if I call the position vector of Q1 as R1 and the position vector of Q2 as R2, I'm going to represent them like this. If I call this as R1 and if I call this as R2. Is that clear? Now, the distance between them is how much? Obviously, it is the same distance R. So if I take a diagram like this, if I have to write the scalar form of it, scalar form of Coulomb's law, what am I going to get? I'm still going to have F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2, the same distance R square. But along with the magnitude, I also need to take the direction into consideration. So what is a vector which is going to help us to understand the direction of any given vector? It is easy. I need to represent the unit vector for this particular scenario. Right? See, what I'm going to do is, everybody remembers triangle law of addition, not normal law of addition of vectors. What does triangle law of addition of vectors state? If two vectors are represented in magnitude and direction along two sides of a triangle in a continuous manner. What do you mean by continuous manner? That is, the ending point of the first vector will be the starting point of the second vector. Then how is the resultant given as? The resultant is given as the closing side of the triangle taken in the reverse order. For those who don't know, let me explain it slowly. Listen to this carefully. If I take one vector like this, okay, if I call this as a vector, then if I take another vector like this, then not sure why there is a delay. Just give me a minute, please. So these two are said to be continuous vectors, right? If I call this as B vector, then what does triangle of addition state? So if A vector and B vector are taken along the sides of a triangle in a continuous manner, in the sense the ending point of the first vector is the starting point of second vector, then the resultant is given by the closing side of the triangle taken in the reverse order. Okay, then this is what I call it as C vector. Then C vector is equal to how much? A vector plus B vector. So this is the logic which we are going to use for the triangle here. I'll call this as AB, I'll call this as O. Now tell me guys, what is OA vector? So any vector whose initial point is origin is a position vector. What is OA vector in this case? It is R1 vector. What is OB vector? It is R2 vector. Now if I take AB vector, what am I going to get? If I call AB vector as R vector, okay, listen to this very carefully, okay. If I call this as R vector, then how can this R vector be represented in terms of R1 vector and R2 vector? Clear? I'm talking only about the displacement.
Sir, R vector is equal to R1 vector plus R2 vector.
It is not. It cannot be the sum of
R2
those.
vector minus
R2
R1
minus R1.
Yes, because see, OA vector is there. For OA vector, what would be the continuous vector? Will it be AB vector or BA vector? For me to apply triangle of addition, I need two continuous vectors. So if I take one of the
AB
vectors, OA vector, then the ending point of the first vector should be the starting point of the second vector which I'm adding. So what am I ending with? I'm starting with O, ending with A. So what should be the next vector? A, B vector will be equal to how much? Will be equal to OB vector. Are you guys able to understand? So I am concerned to find what is AB vector. It is OB vector minus OA vector. How many of you are not clear with this? How many of you are not clear with this? Yeah, tell me.
Sir, which is the resultant vector in the graph, sir?
Resultant is R vector, R2 vector. See, this is what AB vector is. Now
Sir,
try
what,
to.
sir,
now
what start with OB, sir? You said if I start with OA, then OA plus AB will be OB.
If you go with OB, then you go with BA.
Oh, okay, sir.
Only then they'll become continuous vectors. Okay, so AB vector
R vector is in which direction, sir?
is arrow mark. This is the direction in which R vector is. This is what AB vector is, no? This is point A, this is point B. So, listen, if I try to bring and keep it here, now are you able to visualize?
Yes, sir.
Here? Yeah. So, R vector is equal to, what is OB vector guys? It is R2 vector minus R1 vector, right? Do you guys remember the concept of relative velocity? I'm just trying to connect the dots. Even if you don't know, not a big deal. If I have to find the velocity of the first vector with respect to second, how do I write it? V1 vector minus V2 vector, right? So now I'm going to do a reverse analysis. If I give you what is V1 vector minus V2 vector, how will you write it in a simpler form? It is written as V12 vector. In a similar way, if R2 vector minus R1 vector is given, then how can I write R vector as R21 vector? Are you guys able to understand this? So R21 vector is nothing but R2 vector minus R1 vector. Similarly, what is BA vector? BA vector is nothing but, observe the way I am writing. Can I call it as negative of R21 vector? Because if AB vector is like this, if this is AB vector, then how is BA vector going to be? Is it not going to be exactly in the opposite direction of the same magnitude? So what kind of vectors are they? They are just opposite vectors. right? So when you write opposite vectors, AB vector and BA vector will just be the negation of each other. That is the negative of each other. So can I write it like this? Am I allowed to write like this? BA vector is nothing but negative of R21 vector. I hope everyone is clear. Please listen, this is a very, very, very important derivation. If you understand this only, you can solve problems. So if there is any doubt, please stop me. Okay. So this is going to be negative of R2 vector minus R1 vector. So what is this, guys? This is nothing but R2 vector minus R2 vector plus R1 vector. So what is this? R1 vector minus R2 vector. How to write it in simpler form? R12 vector. Okay. So there are two important conclusions that we have taken. So R21 vector is from where to where? R21 vector is from A to B. R12 vector is from where to where? B to A. Have this point in your mind. Okay. So let me write a small conclusion here. R21 vector is in the direction of AB vector, which is given as R2 vector minus R1 vector. R12 vector is nothing but negative of R21 vector, which is in the direction of BA vector, or R1 vector minus R2 vector. If you see any kind of expression, any one of the expression from all these 4 points, you should be able to find it. Right? Sometimes the questions will be given in this format, you should understand. Okay? Shall I proceed? So I have found the direction. Now I am concerned about the magnitude of R21 vector and R12 vector. If I ask you what is the magnitude of R21 vector, can I say this is exactly the same as magnitude of R12 vector? Okay. Wait.
Yes, sir.
If this is R21 vector, this is R12 vector, which are in opposite direction, they are exactly representing the same things. So the magnitude, the length of this vector is exactly equal to the length of this vector also. That is equal to how much value? That is exactly equal to distance of separation between which 2 points? Distance of separation between A and B. And A and B is given by R. So can I write magnitude of R21 vector is equal to magnitude of R12 vector is nothing but R. Clear? So let me have this as equation number 1. Now what are we supposed to do? We are trying to do all these things only to give a direction to the already known magnitude. Magnitude is simple task. Q1 Q2 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught R square. But what is the unit vector you are going to give to it is the question. For that, we will take a free body diagram of both the charges. In the sense, I'm only concentrating on those 2 charges, and I'm going to see what are all the forces they are going to experience. If I take them to be of like nature, okay, here for the sake of derivation, I'm taking them to be like nature. If I take them to be like nature as Q1 and Q2, then the force experienced by A due to B will be in which direction? See, A,
In the direction of B, sir.
both are of same nature, right? So A and B are of same nature means what kind of a force will exist between them? Repulsive or attractive? Repulsive.
Repulsion.
Means A will experience a repulsive force away from B, so it will tend to move in this direction. Are you guys able to visualize it? So can I say this is the direction in which the force is going to be experienced by A due to B? I will just call it as F. I'll give a symbol to it later. In a similar way, what is the direction in which B will experience a force due to A? B is like this. So both are of like nature. B will start getting repelled. So it is also going to move away. Now comes an important point. Is it going to move randomly in any direction? Can I see if this is A and B? Can I say force experienced by A due to B is in this direction? Can I write it like this? The answer is no. There is an important point we need to understand, that the force between these 2 charges will always act along the line joining these 2 charges. So that is a very, very, very important point. So whenever you are drawing the arrow mark, you should always draw along this direction. Whether it is attractive or repulsive, you should always draw it along the line joining both the charges. Never forget this, okay? All these things are similar to what you have learned in gravitation. Clear? So what is this direction, guys? BA vector is represented by which vector? BA vector. BA vector is R12 vector. AB vector is R21 vector. I hope there is no confusion, right? No. So this is a force, this is a force. Now I will call this force as F12, I will call this force as F21. Okay. So F12 is called as, look at the way I'm going to name it, okay? Force experienced by 1 due to charge at 2. Here which is 1 and which is 2? The charge which is at point A is considered to be 1 and the charge which is at point B is considered to be 2. So there are two ways to experience it, stated. Force experienced by 1 due to the charge at 2, or force exerted by 2 on 1, active voice and passive voice. Okay. Similarly, you guys tell me what can I call F21 vector as? Force experienced
By 2 due to.
very good. Force experienced by the charge at 2 due to the charge at the first position. Simple. Or force exerted by charge at 1 on 2. So the grammar here is force experienced means by, force exerted means on. Okay. Shall I proceed? Yeah. Now, see, before I write F12 vector, we are almost on the verge of it. If I take a vector A like this, okay, if I have to write this as A vector, then how can I write the A vector in terms of its own magnitude and its own unit vector? So A vector is nothing but magnitude of A vector into the direction of A vector, because vector is a physical quantity which has magnitude and direction. Magnitude is represented by modulus and the direction is represented by a unit vector, right? So magnitude of A vector into A cap. In a similar context, how can I write F12 vector as magnitude of F12 vector into the direction of F12? Does this make sense? Right? So magnitude of F12 vector you people already know. When I say magnitude of the force between the charges, it's still the same Coulomb's law in which form? In the scalar form. What happened? Oh, I'm sorry. So F12 vector, right? So what is the magnitude of F12? It is same thing. Q1, okay, I'll write it like this: 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. That is nothing but the scalar form. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Q1, Q2 within the modulus divided by R square into, in the place of F12 cap, what can I write in terms of R? Can I write it as R12 cap? So this is the expression for scalar quantity of Coulomb's law. Sorry, vector form of Coulomb's law. In a similar way, I can write F12 vector as, this is also important, see, 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught. I'm writing the same 1 to see. Magnitude of Q1, yeah, tell me.
Sir, R is basically a displacement, no sir. Then in the place of force, we are writing it.
R is?
Explain me that point.
Well, I didn't get you. R is?
R is considered as displacement, no sir. Then in the place of F force, how are we writing that, sir? Can you explain me that part?
Which part? This part?
Yes, sir. In place of force, we are writing r cap, no, sir.
Huh? See, this
In
one.
place of force,
Okay, I'm putting a tick here. Did you understand this part?
yes, sir.
The same thing I wrote. I wrote the same thing. The magnitude of A vector, in the place of A you have F12. So the magnitude of F12 is this whole thing. And the direction of F12 is what? R12. That is why I wrote it as R12 cap.
Okay, sir.
Got it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now another important point. How can I write a unit vector in terms of its vector and magnitude? If I just rearrange this equation, what am I going to get? A vector divided by magnitude of A vector. I just rearranged it, nothing else, right? So R12 cap in a similar way can be written as R12 vector divided by magnitude of R12 vector. This is another way. So what I'm trying to say is, when you write Coulomb's law in vector form, you can either write it in terms of unit vector or the vector itself. Are you guys able to understand the difference between the box and the below one? Everyone? No confusion, right? So what is the magnitude of R12 vector? It is R. So when this R is going to get multiplied with R square, R cube, this is another way, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into magnitude of Q1 into magnitude of Q2 divided by R cube into R12 vector. So when you are asked to write Coulomb's law in vector form, you can write either of the statements. Is that clear? So the next part is very simple. Similarly, what can we do? F21 vector will be equal to 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q1 Q2 divided by R square, put them within a modulus, into unit vector R21 cap. Or F21 vector will be equal to 1 divided by 4 pi epsilon naught into magnitude of Q1 into magnitude of Q2 divided by R cube into R21. Clear? Right. So if you're done, I'll proceed to the next part. Guys online, any doubt?
No, sir.
You people? Everyone is clear? Okay. So we'll go to the next concept. So as I mentioned, the previous one is very, very important. So please make a note of it and try to derive it again on your own. Now you might feel you would have understood, but when you try to solve it, you will not get it. So you try it again. Okay. Next, we are going to discuss about the principle of superposition. Okay. I'm sure this word is not new to you. Where did you see this word, principle of superposition? You would have seen in waves, right? So what does it mean? It speaks something about the resultant, right? So now comes an important question. Why do we need principle of superposition? Why can't we deal everything with Coulomb's law itself? Because Coulomb's law has certain drawbacks. What is it? One is it is defined only for point charges, and it is defined for a system of how many point charges? When you have system of 2 point charges, but it is not necessary that every system in this world you are going to deal with is going to have only 2 charges, right? It can have more than 2 charges, it can have n number of charges also. During that situation, how are you going to handle, or how are you going to find the resultant force, is what this principle of superposition is going to tell us. Okay. Now, how do we state it? If I have to give an expression or a statement to it, How do I state it? If n point charges are present in a system, okay, if n point charges are present in a system, then the resultant force experienced by any charge due to the remaining system. So one charge will experience a force due to how many charges on it? So if there are n charges, I'm interested to calculate the force that is experienced by only one charge. That one charge will be experiencing force due to how many charges?
n-1.
Due to n minus 1 charges. So the force experienced by any charge due to the remaining charges is given as the vector sum of the individual forces experienced by the charge due to the system. I'm repeating it. If n point charges are present in the system, then the resultant force experienced by any charge due to the remaining charges is given as the vector sum of the individual forces experienced by the charge due to the system. So what am I trying to say here? I hope you guys copied it. Right? So if there are n charges, let's say first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like this, there are n number of charges that are present. I am concerned to find the force experienced by the first charge due to the remaining charges. Okay, then how can I write it? So between 2 and 1, the force experienced by the first charge will be in which direction? If I take everything to be of the same nature, then repulsive. So it will be in this direction. So what is the name of this force? It is F12. Repulsive, okay. It is F12, correct? The force experienced by 1 due to the third charge. I call this as F12. Then I can call this as F31. Similarly, due to the fourth charge, F41. Sorry, 14. Sorry, 1.
Be F13, let's see.
Yeah, 13. 14. Due to the fifth charge, F15. So it is experiencing how many forces? It is going to experience n minus 1 forces. Now, if you want to find the sum of all these forces, are you going to add them algebraically or vectorially? Are you going to use vector addition or algebraic addition? You need to use vector addition because the force has a direction associated with it. Then the principle of superposition states like this: the resultant force experienced is given as F12 vector plus F13 vector plus F14 vector plus so on till F1n vector. Are you guys able to understand the mathematical expression? So this is what we call it as the principle of superposition. Please make a note of it. The vector starts from, but I wrote it as 1 to, no, force experienced by 1 due to. That is the notation I gave. You can give it like you want, but you should mention it. If you call F12 as the force experienced by 1 due to 2, then you can take it. You need to mention it. For example, if you see the textbook, it might be in the reverse also. They'll give it as F21. But that F21, the meaning should be explained. Okay, if you don't write it, then it is taken in the general form, then you will lose marks. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to say? So in the exam, if you're taking it as F12, you need to write it in a statement. F12 is equal to force experienced by the first charge due to second. That is how you are taking the notation. That is why you wrote it like this. Okay. Shall I proceed? So let's look at an example problem. So let's look at an example problem which is based on the principle of superposition. Let us consider 3-point charges which are placed at the vertices of an equilateral triangle. Okay. There are 3-point charges which are placed at the vertices of an equilateral triangle, and all the 3 charges have the same magnitude and same nature. Means all the 3 are positive. Now, there is a 4th charge of magnitude 2q placed at the centroid of this triangle. So centroid of this triangle, and our work is to find the resultant force experienced by the charge at the centroid due to the remaining part of the system. That's the question. Find the force experienced by the charge at G due to the charges at point A, B and C. So this is a how many particle system? So it's a 4-particle system. Out of the 4 particles, you are concerned about the force experienced by one of the charges due to the remaining 3 charges, right? So since they are not aligned in the same direction, in the sense they are not collinear, what we need to do is we need to go with the principle of superposition. So how are we going to do this? So first, let's number them. The charge at point A, I will call it as 1. The charge at point B, I will call it as 2, and the charge at point C, I will call it as 3, and the charge at point G, I will call it as 4. Now tell me, since all are of same nature, how will the force between 1 and 4 exist, and what will be the direction in which it is going to exist? Repeat the question. What will be the direction in which the force between 1 and 4 will exist?
Sir, doubts. What is the nature of the charge, sir?
Yeah, tell me.
What's the nature of the charge, sir?
All are positive.
It will be repulsive, sir, between A and G.
So all are positive, okay, and are of equal magnitude. The ones which are placed at the vertices are of equal magnitude. The one which is placed at centroid is double the charge at each vertex. You are saying something. So it will be in which direction? What is the direction? So you need to join these two using a line, and since it is going to be repulsive force, it will be in the downward or upward direction. It will be in the downward direction. So what is the name of that force? F. Force experienced by the 4th charge due to F. Sorry, F4. It's not F1. It is F4.
Sir, for A, wouldn't it be upward, sir?
Listen to the question carefully. Why are you concerned about the charge, the force experienced by the charge at A? What was the question? The question is, what is the force experienced by the charge at which point? Okay. It's not about repelling, that they both will exert equal forces only. That is why the system will still be at equilibrium only. If 2 charges are placed like this, the system will still be at equilibrium only, because the force experienced by the force exerted by 1 on 2 is exactly the same in magnitude by the force exerted by 2 on 1. That's what we saw now. When we saw the vector form of Coulomb's law, what is the magnitude of F12 and F21? They both are same. In the sense, if 2 charges are placed like this, they will remain at their position because they will experience Newton's third law. Force exerted by 1 on 2 is the same as F21 as well. They both are of same charge. It need not be same charge, right? They can be of opposite also, because calculate the magnitude and see. Because what you need to calculate the magnitude of force between 2 charges? What are all the parameters you need? You need the value of the charges and you need the distance of separation between them. When I take a charge as Q and 2Q, okay, I'm talking only system where there are only 2-point charges. If I take one charge as Q and the other charge as 2Q, and the distance between them as R, What is the force that is going to act in this direction in terms of magnitude? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q into 2Q divided by R square. So in which direction? In this direction. What is the force that is going to act in this direction? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q into the same 2Q divided by R square. So magnitude wise they both are the same, but they both are in opposite direction and they get cancelled out. That is why when you have a 2-point system, they are always at equilibrium. Whereas if you have more than two charges, you can always disturb the system. Okay, well, see what is going to happen here. So that is why I'm stressing on the question, listen to it. I am only concerned about finding the force acting on which charge? The charge placed at the centroid due to the remaining part of the system. That is why I'm trying to find a direction in which the force is exerted on the charge at point G due to the remaining part. So due to 1 on 4, it will be in the downward direction, accepted. Due to 4 on 1, obviously it will be in the upward direction, but that is not our point of concern because the question did not ask about the force experienced by the charge at point A. That's not their concern, right? Similarly, you have a charge at point 2. So the charge at point 2 will exert a force on charge at point 4 in which direction? Along the line joining them, away from the fourth charge. So what will be the name of it? F42. Force experienced by the fourth charge due to the second charge. Okay. Similarly, between C and G, so it will act along the line joining them and it will be away from the fourth charge. It is going to be equal, but directions were. That's why I asked, principle of superposition is not concerned about magnitude. It is concerned about direction. Direction as things will change. Okay. So F43. So if I take a free body diagram of point G, then F43 is acting in this direction. F42 is acting in this direction and F41 is acting in this direction, accepted? Right. Now we need to apply some basic geometry to find out what is the value. If I take the side of each, if I take the magnitude of each side of the triangle as A, then what is the distance between point A and G, point B and G, and point C and G? All are equal. Then how much is the value going to be? Let's know the value also. No? So if I take a triangle like this point is G. So equilateral triangle has a special property. What is it? The centroid, orthocenter, and the circumcenter, everything is the same. Centroid and another point of intersection of the centroid no point left line joining. The point medians. So the point of intersection of medians is called as centroid. What is an orthocenter? Ortho on a perpendicular. The point joining the altitudes. The point joining the altitudes is called as the orthocenter. What is the circumcenter? Center of the circle, which is okay, but are the empty one on the center? How do you get it? It is the point of intersection of angular bisectors. Okay, so all the three are same for the equilateral triangle. So this angle will be 30 degrees because it's an angular bisector. Okay, and if I drop a perpendicular here, this distance will be a by 2. Then how much is this distance? Sorry, I'm not concerned about this distance. BG is how much? A by 2 divided by, if I call this distance as x, a by 2 divided by x is how much?
Ax by 2.
It is root 3 by 2. So x will be a divided by root 3. So cos 30 is root 3 by 2. So x is nothing but a divided by root 3. I hope you are able to understand. Similarly, this is also a by root 3. This is also a by root 3. Guys, am I clear? So, F41 is equal to how much? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into, tell me, F41 guys. It is a product of the charges. 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q into 2Q divided by, what is the distance of separation between them? A by root 3 the whole square, so that is A square divided by 3. This is the same as F42 and F43 in terms of magnitude, because the same system of charges are there, Q and 2Q, and the distance is same. I hope you are clear, right? I wrote it directly. Now,
Sir,
tell me that.
how 2Q came, sir?
They are only magnitudes. Vector Veda. Yeah, tell me, Mithun.
Sir, how 2Q came, sir?
2Q is a charge at centroid.
Okay, sir.
That's what I gave in the question, no 2Q. 2Q is a charge at centroid at point G, observe. Any confusion? No, right? Okay. Now see, whenever you are dealing with vectors, there are two ways to solve vector-based problem. One is parallelogram law of vectors, and the second is resolution of vectors. You know what is resolution, right? So if there is any vector aligned in a random direction, it can always be resolved into two components, the horizontal component and the vertical component. Just to recollect the basic, if I take this as a vector, which is making an angle theta with the x-axis, what are the two components that are going to exist for it? A cos theta and A sin theta, obviously. A cos theta is in which direction? Right. Wherever theta is there, there cos will be existing. So it is A cos theta, and the vertical component will be A sin theta. Okay, this is called as resolution of vectors. In a similar way, if you observe, if I take this point, right, and in physics, no, you should always take a reference coordinate system at the starting point. So if I take the reference coordinate system like this, if I take this as the origin, then which is the vector which is perfectly aligned along y direction? F41 is perfectly along y direction, but the other two vectors are not aligned to the x or the y direction. So what we will do is we will resolve them into components. So if I have to resolve them into components, I need to know what is the angle. So what is this particular angle x? So if this is 30 degrees, if this is 30 degrees, this is 90, then how much is this angle? It is 60, right? So then how much is this angle? Same 60, right? Then what will be the angle between F41 and F42? F41 and F42 will be 120 degrees. Okay, out of the 120 degrees, what has happened is 90 degrees is gone. Then how much will this angle be? Purida, it is 30 degrees, right? F42, if I call it, so one thing I'm going to do is F41 is equal to F2, F42 is equal to F43, I will call it as F, I'm calling it as F. Okay, then can I write this as F? This also I will write it as F, and this also I will write it as F. Here F, by writing F, what I mean is it's just a symbol for the scalar value. Then this F can be resolved into two components. What are the two components? Along the x direction, you guys tell me. Along x direction it is F cos 30, and along the y direction it will be F sin 30. In a similar way, what will be the angle here? What will be the angle here? The same 30 degrees. Now this is also F, then this can be resolved into two components. What are the two components? F cos 30 in the leftward direction and F sin 30 in the upward direction. Now, what are all the components that will get cancelled? Equal magnitude, opposite direction, they are gone. So F cos 30 and F cos 30 are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction, so they're gone. So what are all the components that are getting added in the vertical direction? Look at the arrow marks. First arrow mark represents one F sin 30. The second arrow mark represents another F sin 30. So what is the net upward force that is acting on the system?
2F sin 30.
It is 2F sin 30. And what is the net downward force that is acting on the system? That is F41. F41 is also F only. Okay, so this is nothing but 2f into, what is the value of sine 30, guys?
1/2.
Sine 30 is half. This and this we get cancelled. This is also f. So there is a net force of f acting in the upward direction and in the downward direction. So what do you think will be the force acting on it? So net horizontal force is how much that we already saw is 0 because f cos 30 and f cos 30 got cancelled. Net vertical force is how much? That is 2f sine 30 minus f, which is also 0. So for this kind of a system, what is the net force acting on it? So if you place equal charges at the vertices of an equilateral triangle, and irrespective of whatever magnitude you place at the centroid, the force experienced by the charge at centroid is always 0 because of the symmetrical nature. Is it clear? So this is an application of principle of superposition. Please make a note of this. If there is any doubt, get it clarified. I'm repeating it. This is also important because this is applied in many other derivations. There is doubt, immediately ask.
Sir, can you repeat the last statement, sir?
Can you?
Repeat the last statement, sir.
Oh, last statement. Okay. When equal charges, okay, I'll do one thing first. Did you copy it? Did you copy
Yes,
the whole
sir.
thing? You copied it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes time. Let everyone copy. I'll tell.
Sir, can you explain that resolution part again, sir? How you cos theta and the came, sir?
See,
Vertical force, sir. That vertical force, how did you classify, sir?
I'm explaining. This is f, okay. If this is taken as 30 degrees, then this f can be resolved into 2 components. One is in the rightward direction, which is called as f cos 30, and one in the upward direction, which is called as f sin 30. Are you clear with this? Similarly, there was another force f existing like this, and here the angle was 30 degrees. Then this can be resolved as f cos 30, and this can be resolved as f sin 30. So how many f sin 30s are existing?
2, sir.
2 are existing in the same direction. And how many f cos 30s are existing?
2 in opposite direction.
2 in opposite direction. So they will get cancelled. And the 2 f sin 30s which are in the upward direction will get added. And remember, there is another force acting in the downward direction also, which is f. This one. So 2 f sin 30s are acting in upward direction and 1 f is acting in the downward direction. So 2 f sin 30, when you calculate, its magnitude is going to give you f. So f and f are in opposite directions, so they get cancelled.
That magnitude we should calculate with the formula, sir. 1/4 pi epsilon naught into q.
Yes, magnitude you will calculate. I already calculated. No? I already calculated it.
Sir, this is applicable only in equilateral triangle, no, sir?
Sorry?
This is applicable in only equilateral triangle, no, sir?
Yes, it is applicable only for equilateral.
Sir, why did you take it as f, sir? The all f41, f42, f43 is equal to f. Why did you take it like that?
See, when you write Coulomb's law, f is equal to 1/4 pi epsilon naught into q1 into q2 divided by r square. Okay. So for f41, f42 and f43, 1/4 pi epsilon naught is common. The two charges that you are multiplying is also common. And the distance between the two charges is also the same. Right? So f41 is the same as f42 is the same as f43. For that I gave a name as f. Okay? So write down the conclusion, guys, if you have not made any note. So what is the conclusion I told? In an equilateral triangle, if all the charges placed at the vertices are what? Are of equal magnitude, then the force experienced by the charge at the centroid is always 0, irrespective of what? Irrespective of the magnitude of the charge at the centroid. Okay? Irrespective of the magnitude of the charge at the centroid. It is only for equilateral. Square good. For any symmetrical.
Sir,
You can take for square, you can take for rectangle.
I can repeat it again, sir.
For equilateral triangle, in an equilateral triangle, if the charges placed at the vertices are of equal magnitude, then the net force experienced by the charge at the centroid is always zero, irrespective of the magnitude of charge which is placed at the centroid. Okay.
So I have a doubt.
Yeah, tell me.
So for example, this point was in the midpoint of the equilateral triangle. So then how would it affect?
Midpoint of inequilateral triangle.
Yes, sir. Instead of the centroid, it's at the midpoint, the base of an equilateral
Midpoint of which
triangle.
side? Midpoint of which
Like
side? You cannot
like
call
we
it as
can
a
say
midpoint.
base,
Okay.
the base of an equilateral.
So
triangle.
Rohan is asking that what would have happened if the same system was existing like this, but instead of the charge being at the centroid, had it been at the center of the base? Do you think it is still going to be zero?
No, sir.
This is Q, this is Q, this is Q. We can do it in one step. Okay, I'm just going a little fast to make you understand. If you want a mathematical calculation, that I'll do it in the next class. Okay, so I'm concerned about the force experienced at point P. So due to B, what will be the direction in which the force will be experienced at point P? If I call this as 1, 2, 3 and the point at P as 4. So what will be the direction in which P will experience the force due to the charge at point P? Rightward or leftward? So 2Q and Q are of same nature. They will experience in towards C. That's right. That is called as F42. Due to C at P towards B, that is how much? F. Correct now. F43. What can you say about the magnitude of F42 and F43? They are equal because the same combination of charges in the same distance. So they will get cancelled. So what is the only force that is going to exist? So one force that will exist is in the downward direction. In this case, it is not zero. Rather, the answer will exist in the downward direction. Means 2Q will start moving in the downward direction. That is the meaning. Okay. Is that clear? Yes. So if you want the mathematical part, that we can see it in the next class. Okay. So we'll end the session with this. Chemistry. Okay. So that's it, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.